Hey guys, so first of all, about the heist, and I'm not gonna spoil it because I know many people don't want to hear any spoilers, so just my opinion, what I think overall about the heist. I think heist has the potential to be one of the best leagues ever. It has a lot of new build, new items, new support gems, role-playing possibilities, so overall it has a lot of things that can appeal to different kind of players. I still have my concerns about the league, but I guess we're gonna have to wait and see how the league itself plays out, and then I guess decide. Now that's out of the way, so I'm gonna talk about this ice trap build. And I think ice trap is probably underrated, and it has a lot of potential. It does pretty decent damage, and this is pretty cheap build. As you know, I don't really invest too much into my builds, so this can be fine-tuned a lot more. I did try to defeat Cirrus 8, but I just played poorly, and while the damage was fine, I just don't have like good defense there. So I'm gonna talk about all the build-related things, but first I want to talk about something else. I used to have terrible lighting setup in my room, and most of the light coming into my room would be blocked by both of my monitors, so the light around my keyboard was very poor. And you can probably see that there is light now somewhere around here. But where is it coming from? Well, I did receive a ScreenBar from BenQ and they asked me to review it. So that's what I did, and I made a 5 minutes video. It was first of my review videos, but it has 100% like ratio, so I guess it did perform well in that sense, and people liked the review itself. So if you have bad lighting setup and you don't have much room, much space in your room, and you need some light, definitely check that video out. And even if you're not too interested in the product, I still try to make the video interesting. I did include, well, if you want to see how my kind of room looks like and how my setup looks like and looked like before I added the light, and also cat reveal. If you want to see that, do check the video out. And yeah, back to the build video. Right, so about the build. Now, the build, like I said, is not too expensive, but with Harvest Craft it was easier to get certain things, certain rolls on items, and certain modifiers combined together. So it may be much more expensive in the upcoming leagues, but it can still be done. You can still improve this build quite a lot more. Mapping was fine, but the build, like I said, does lack some survivability. I wasn't really sure what else to do. I do have a dodge, I do have a blind aura, and take less damage from blinded enemies. I do have Saboteurs regen, I am immune to shock and ignites, but other than that I don't really have much defenses. Now the cool thing about ice trap, a single ice trap can actually hit multiple times. It's a bit tricky and it's very inconsistent. You kind of need to place it in a certain spot under the enemies. Well, you don't really need to worry about that. It just sometimes happens that it overlaps and does multiple hits. And that's why the damage can be much higher than it shows in PUB. I didn't really do anything like special for this build, like a meme like. It just, I mean, ice trap exists. Not many people even know that ice trap exists. So I guess that's the meme, that ice trap exists and it can do very good damage actually. You're gonna see in the clips that the damage is fine. It can be improved, but it seems fine to me, and all the clips are on Awakening 8. And if you check the map mod, sometimes you may not be able to see it, but many times against bigger bosses like Minotaur, I believe, or Hydra had like 50% more monster life, or increased monster life. So and like I think some had Equilibrium or something like that. So the damage is definitely good, but it has that kind of delay before throwing trap and starting doing damage. It's not an issue with you don't have that with mines, because you can detonate mines mid-air. But with this, you have to wait for the traps to be triggered, and I do not have chain reaction. I just thought that chain reaction is not really needed if you get enough trap trigger AoE. And I'm not sure if that was the right call or not, but it does work for me. And I'm using cluster traps. Most of the time I was actually using multi-trap, and as soon as I switched to cluster trap at level like 88, it instantly felt better and just smoother somehow. I don't know why, but it just was like that. Additionally, I was thinking of using Swift Assembly instead of multi-trap because, sorry, cluster trap, because cluster trap has like 35% less damage and it only throws 2 additional traps. So I wasn't sure about that. But the cluster trap, I mean, with cluster trap you are basically dealing more damage per second because you are able to throw more traps per second. Of course, if all the traps can trigger fast enough. And I am using all this time, I was using concentrated effect. Surprisingly, it felt enough, sufficient, didn't really need any of increased AoE, and you can't really have extra explosions because the traps do the killing, it doesn't count as you getting the kill. So you can't really use Herald of Ice explosions, you can't really use Explode the Body Armor, you don't really need it, the trap AoE is pretty big, and yeah. The only issue is the delay, and I understand that it's not for everyone, and I'm not trying to sell it to play. I just want to bring attention that hey, Ice Trap is actually pretty good, and you can do a lot of damage with it, and maybe you wanna try to make a build around it. So I'm gonna go over my items, gems, links, passive tree. As always, you can find POB import code in the description. And timestamps. There are no like core items for this build, it just there are plenty of different items that you can use. Well, there's like no core item that you need or you couldn't do the build. You can adapt the build as long as you get enough life, resistances, and some kind of different defensive layer. Actually, you could very easily add fortify with shield charge and it may feel better, but the reason why I'm not using shield charge with Fortify is that I don't want to be shield charging into enemies and then waiting for traps to trigger. First throwing the traps and then waiting for them to trigger. That's very deadly. So I decided to just not get hit. Sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't. Especially when I do get hit, then it doesn't work. So I got body armor with +1 to active skill gems, and spells have crit chance. That's a bit of extra, and I did want to increase my crit chance a bit more because I did not go for the maximum power charges, because generating power charges was an issue until I figured out that hey, wait, I can just use Jaws of Agony to generate power charges by just throwing traps, and I only did that at level 91 forehead. So yeah, definitely just get Jaws of Agony if you want to generate power charges for this. You don't actually even need well, I guess you still want the Blast Cascade from the passive tree to be able to generate power charges like passively. So that's the body armor, also with a lot of life and some rest. The helmet is Crown of the Tyrant just because it gives a lot of flat cold damage to everything and lowers nearby enemies all resistances. By the way, Ice Trap does have very high base, very high effectiveness of other damage, 200%. So anything that gives flat damage to spells is gonna be pretty big. So Crown of the Tyrant, I did manage to get Skitterbots have a reduced mana reservation, but it's not really needed. It may be, yeah, because I am still using level 2 Enlighten linked to Skitterbots and Bone Chill. I'm gonna talk about that in a moment. So you don't need this enchantment, you just need like a level 3 Enlighten. Now the weapon is just, I guess, ordinary weapon that is pretty good. Spell damage, crit chance for spells, you definitely want crit chance for spells because it doesn't have very high crit chance. +1 to call spell skill gems and craft crit multi. Similar for the shield, I did go with the shield rather than dual wield because I wanted extra life and some rest. And that's pretty much the shield. The gloves, nothing too special. You can get multiple different gloves. I went with the increased damage with hits against shield enemies, and the enemies are always shield from Skitterbots. So that just a straight up increased damage. Boots, I mean, there are many ways, many different boots you can get. I just needed life and enough resistances and actually some strength. So that's what I got. I also didn't bother to craft the best movement speed, just went with the cannot be chilled as well. Ring, just whatever ring you can get with life and some damage in any way, but you do want to get non-channeling skills have minus mana cost or some massive mana regen. And I'm not even sure which is better. a lot of mana percentage mana regen or minus mana cost. So whichever you can get, just experiment, I guess. You can also get Redeemer's Ring, which allows to roll a mod with flat cold damage against shield or frozen enemies. So that's also pretty decent improvement, but I'm not even sure which is better, just this flat damage or percentage increase to cold damage or something like that. The amulet, I did try to craft the amulet. Look at this amulet, 3% increase spell damage, amazing, right? So yeah, the amulet, I tried to get something like that, but with obviously more damage, but that's what I end up with. Basically +1 to call spell skill gems, then crit multi, and whatever else you can get, like or whatever else you need, like spell damage, maybe even, well, wouldn't recommend crit chance, but yeah, something, resistances. I went with the Darkness Enthroned. I think Darkness Enthroned is gonna become very frequently used by me. You can just modify so easily what you are lacking and put in the visuals. And I actually don't have the best visuals because I have fire damage to spells, but it does have a very high, actually tier 1 maximum life roll, so I just use that. And basically in general on jewels you want life. You may want actually more percentage life than flat life, so you may need to get more normal jewels rather than visuals in the socket in the passive tree. And you want to go with the, if you're going with the normal jewels, you want spell damage or crit multi for cold spells, and then life, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now links. Ice Trap linked with trap and mine damage. This is kind of annoying because it reduces the trap throwing speed. It's really annoying, but it's not really a big deal. You do get some trap throwing speed elsewhere. Then concentrated effect, and I think concentrated effect just works fine. I did not want to use LA focus because that would disable freezes, and that's pretty good defensive layer. I can even freeze some bosses, some bigger bosses. Then hypothermia because everything is chilled all the time. Cluster traps, and then inspiration. Inspiration reduces the mana cost and gives a bit more critical strike chance, which is fine. Then I got bad trap in the helmet. You basically throw bad trap, use wave of conviction. Wave of conviction is, by the way, linked with curse on hit and frostbite. You may want to use frostbomb, but frostbomb has delay before exploding and before applying the curse, so wave of conviction just is more instant. And since you're dealing the most cold damage, so you're gonna apply the cold exposure anyway. Then I have Hatred linked with Skitterbots, Bone Chill, and Enlighten. And Bone Chill is only linking to the summon Skitterbots. And the reason why that is Skitterbots basically gonna give you more damage because Bone Chill gives more damage based on the chill effect. It's a bit difficult to explain chill effect, but it's not like 40. It's not like 43% increased damage. It's gonna be. Like I said, it's hard to explain, but it just no matter does give damage. There you go. I could just have said that, and of course, Enlighten to reduce the mana reservation. Then I have Righteous Fire linked with increased duration. Basically, you don't need increased AoE or swift assembly. I was just leveling these, figuring out which to use. And then of course Flame Dash linked with Arcane Surge. And on weapon swap, like I said, I have Jaws of Agony. Now the passive skill tree. Saboteur. First I went with the Explosive Expert. So you could actually give Infernal Legion support gem to Skitterbots, which would increase the mana reservation even more. And then it would also burn enemies, shock and chill. But I just decided to get a bit of flat fire damage to spells, and then I myself do apply ignites and then trigger all of the mods on this thing. So it gives AoE, it gives reduced damage from area hits, and then gives crit multi, crit chance, and LA pen against shield enemies. And then I got the Perfect Crime, Pyromaniac, and Born in the Shadows. And I'm not sure which order. I can't actually remember. Just figure out what you need more. Do you need the Ignite and Shock immunity and a bit more regen and reduce mana cost, or do you need the blind enemies, or do you need this? Perfect Crime is not really that mandatory, but there's nothing else to take, so yeah, take that. I do have cluster jewels. cluster jewels for the cold damage, and I went with the, actually I'm even not using one. One of the nodes is Hated Aura effect, another one is the increased AoE and LE damage, and the third one, which I did not take because I guess did not have enough points, is the Frostbite's Curse effect with crit chance. You can figure out whichever you prefer and maybe find different versions, different things to use. And then on medium jewels I went set and forget to get trap damage, AoE, and trap trigger area of effect, which is very important. And then another trap damage, just a bit more life and mana. And then on the small jewel, just go with the triple passives. There isn't much else where to get life from, so going with 3 passives, small cluster of jewels is advisable in this case. Then obviously phase aggro, getting crit, getting some other jewels, getting these nodes for the traps, very important. Get more crit and power charge. And I decided to anoint this thing just to be able to generate power charges like passively, and of course it does give quite a lot of crit multi. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers the build. Oh, actually I'm not using any Watcher's Eye, but you could get, Watcher's Eye are pretty expensive for Hated Aura, but you could get something really nice if you got the currency. Like I said, if you got the currency, you can push this build way higher. Anyway, that pretty much covers the build. Do check out that ScreenBar review, and I guess thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.